All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going live tonight again for another episode of the Nurses Station. I'm very excited to have on a panel of professionals, both nurses and human resource professionals, who's going to talk us through a bit of information about how our new grad nurses and our nursing students can prepare for the job search. One huge thing about the course of time, kind of over time, from when I started out being a nurse, is I hear from a lot of newer nurses over the last several years of how difficult they feel it is to gain the experience necessary that's necessary to be a nurse and to go along that role. So most of you guys will kind of know about how this story goes. Please make sure that you comment, that you like, that you share, and you give us your story about what your experience was, whether you be a new nurse or whether you be a more experienced nurse with even 50 years of experience. So again, I have on three amazing people, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. First, I will start with the man that really doesn't even need an introduction. He's on so much. I think he's on more than I am. Mr. Ian Solidaris, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Wesley. Thank you very much. I'm Ian Saladares, currently the president for New York City Men in Nursing, and at the national level, the current treasurer. And professionally, I'm a patient care director at New York Presbyterian Lawrence Hospital, covering the critical care department.
Right. And how long have you been a nurse, Ian?
I around 20 years. I think more than 20 years. I graduated 1994. I got my bachelor's back home in the Philippines and my master's here in NYU.
Perfect. And next, I'm going to have Miss Rosemary Sullivan introduce herself and tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone, and thank you guys for inviting me to join you this evening. Um, my name is Rosemary Sullivan. I've been a nurse twice as long as Ian, but things haven't changed that much. And I've been at New York Presbyterian for 19 years, 19 wonderful years, and I've had a series of positions. And presently, I'm directing, I am a nurse, so I'm directing all of nurse recruitment for the 11 hospitals and the soon to open Cohen Children's Hospital at Weill Cornell. So I look forward to dialoguing with everyone about their experience in trying to find the dream job.
Right. Thank you so much, Rosemary, for taking the time out. You have a huge task of recruiting for 11 hospitals in a very large metropolitan city, New York City, and
Right.
upstate, and the island. So, wow. And Neil Nuragood. Neil, did I say your last name correctly? Please correct me.
Nugid, Neil Nugid.
Okay. Tell
Hey
us
guys,
about yourself.
hi. My name is Neil Nugid. I just started in NYP Lawrence about 2 weeks ago. I came from NYP Cornell as a nurse's aide while I was in nursing school, just to get some hands-on, start applying my knowledge to practice, and get a head start. And yeah, that's about it for now.
Okay, perfect. So Neil, you're a very new nurse. You have what I understand 2 weeks in orientation.
Yes, 2 weeks.
2 weeks in orientation. And so, guys, so you see there's a wealth of knowledge and experiences kind of on this panel tonight. And just again, Neil being brand new, right out of school. Well, I don't know if it's right out of school,
Yes.
but Neil, tell us about your experience. Start with your experience about how it was to find a new job. You're a member of an amazing organization. I'm sorry, first, let me start with the disclaimer. We all work, uh, kind of like the entire panel here, are employees of very large metropolitan hospitals. And that experience may be different from more rural and suburban areas. The opinions expressed here tonight represent our own and not our employer. But it is spoken from the experiences that we've had as nurses to share to other nurses about how they can be successful in their job search. So now we're ready to go.
So I graduated from College of Mount Vincent, which is like in Riverdale, Yonkers, in between. And and after that, around my third year being in nursing school, I decided to join NYP Cornell to become a nurse's aide, so I can get some hands-on experience and start networking with people, start meeting people, and start learning and growing my knowledge and preparing to become the best registered nurse that I could be.
Mhm.
Um, so I graduated May 2019. I took a week off, went to LA just to relax, de-stress. 4 years of nursing school was like very, very stressful, as we all know.
Mhm.
Um, and then after that, studied for 3 weeks, took the NCLEX pass. And then the moment I passed, went online, started applying to jobs because I know as a new grad, it's very, very tough to find a job, as we all know. And yeah, and then a month later, 2 weeks ago, I started as a registered nurse in telemetry unit.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Wow. So you were successful because of why do you think that you were successful compared to your classmates in landing a new job at such an awesome facility?
For me, number one thing I feel like is preparation. Since I was in nursing school, I decided to prepare and apply as a nurse's aide so I can, zone. Um, Again, also preparation during clinicals. I tried to be more proactive. My classmates, they were just there doing vital signs, standing around observing. But for me, I was out there actually asking questions, actually trying to look around what I can possibly do, making connections with others, with the nurses, with my preceptors. I actually got a job offer like off graduation at Westchester Medical Center because during my preceptorship, they liked how I acted, they liked my professionalism and care for patients. So I think that's what separated me from others.
Awesome. Awesome. So preparation, what you feel like was the bigger part of you being successful in your job search.
Right, right. Preparation. Yep.
Okay. Well, so I want to start off with again, we've already started off with you. What has been the experience of your classmates that you know of?
So far, I know some of them are just passing the NCLEX. They took longer time than I did to relaxing. But a couple of my friends already landed a job, but a lot are still looking. Because as a new grad, everyone I see you are pretty much everyone wants more than a year of experience. But how can you get a year of experience without, everyone giving you a shot? So that's the tough part.
Right. Right. So, Ian or Rosemary, feel free to take it away about this year of experience and what makes you interested in a candidate is either a hiring manager or a hiring director.
So I'll start, and Ian can he and I will play off one another. So in my role, I'm looking at I have a team of 15, so not just me, but we're looking at when you apply, we're looking at your fit for the position. So this thing about experience has some validity and not in the state of New York, it is by regulation right now that you have to have a year of nursing experience to be an ED nurse, unless you're in a residency or unless they have a holding area and they assign you to the holding area.
Mm.
And many hospitals have that. There is legislation that hasn't reached the floor to change that, but right now that is. And Ian can talk more about an ICU, and I think it's not so much that we don't want new graduates, but there has to be a balance between experience and inexperience. And we do look carefully at what the student has done in the preceptorship, where they've done it. Somebody who wants is on the ICU trajectory, if they are lucky enough to have a preceptorship in an ICU and they do all the things that Neil said, be proactive, be the good student, be interested, that really works. And sometimes we even hire, and believe it or not, just recently in one of our cardiac units at the larger academic medical centers, we hired a new grad over an experienced nurse because the new grad was so enthusiastic, was so engaged, and we knew that she would be really successful.
One of the
So,
things, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Just one of the things you just mentioned that I found really exciting that you brought up is enthusiasm and how enthusiasm contributed to this new nurse being a more attractive candidate than an experienced nurse.
A lot of it is about the attitude, and nobody wants somebody who comes in thinking they're entitled to a job. But I want to backtrack on a little of what Neil said, which is really critically important for the new grads that are listening. There's been a lot of research done about the students passing the NCLEX. And the research supports if you take the test within the first 8 weeks of graduation, you increase the likelihood of passing by 75%. So I would say to the new graduates for December and or May that it's in your best interest to take the test or prepare. You cannot go just walk into the test. You have to have a study plan and take the test. And we do hire loads of new graduates. 30% of all our hires on an annual basis are new grads. But the people that get out of school and say to us, I'm just waiting to take it. I plan to take it by June or July. We will make an offer for hire without the license because we know, there's a good likelihood they're going to pass. But now at this time of the year, we've hired so many new graduates from last January and May and August. There's not that many new grad positions open. We have only one of our hospitals who actually still has new grad positions open, and they're not that many. So that plus your attitude is critically important. Ian, maybe you could talk about the ICU because that's an animal I'm not as familiar with.
So with my role as at the New York City chapter, I mentor a lot of students. And of course, it's not surprising, but even new grads, they want to go to ER specialty areas. But I always tell them it has happened before, right? It could be done. It's not impossible. But if I'm giving them my personal opinion and I tell them it will only make them a better critical care nurse if they have a solid at least 1 year or 2 years med surg experience. That's what I tell my mentees anyway. I encourage them to. The priority is first when the student is to pass the NCLEX, right? And then once you do pass the NCLEX, is find a job. I mean, you would always be looking for your dream job, but I tell them the first priority is get your foot on the door, and then learn as much as you can, right? Develop your skills, and then go for the specialty that you want. There are those that was able to go straight to a critical care area, but like I said, that's not their usual route. And I do tell them, like what Neil said, you need to prepare. I have mentored a lot of my mentees, and I do mock interviews for them. And like I said, you come prepared. You don't come to an interview not knowing anything about the organization. Like I said, unfortunately, for my department that I cover right now, I don't hire newly grads. But I have forwarded them to other hiring managers and other departments. And what I always tell them is you need to come prepared, know about the organization, the mission and vision of the organization. And I always tell them, search and learn about behavioral interviewing, right? I mean, majority of, as far as I know, big organizations do behavioral interviewing. And I told them, practice those questions. I always say that you need to be a star when you're doing a behavioral interview. You need to know the situation, what task is being acquired, what actions you took, and the results. So if you always have that in mind and you approach each question, every time the interviewer starts, have you encountered a situation, or tell me about an experience? They're basically looking what will be your behavior when you encounter those experiences. So that's always one of the big tip that I give Nugas is to learn about behavioral interviewing, because like I said, that will really position them on the interview. And being prepared, like I said, you would think it's basic things, but you won't be surprised. Maybe a month or 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
I'm covering the telemetry unit, right? And there's an interim PCD there. So they asked me to sit on that interview for a position in telemetry. In 5 minutes, that interview was over, because guess what? I
What?
mean, she was enthusiastic. I mean, that candidate was really enthusiastic, but she
Mm-hmm.
was chewing a gum all throughout the. Me and I were looking at the interim PCD. I said, she's really coming and doing this interview chewing a gum.
Right.
And then I mean, at 5 minutes when the PCD basically said, you know what, I'll have to give you feedback. That's when she realized, oh my God. I mean, I was thinking about throwing it out before I got in the door. But like I said, be prepared, dress professionally, come on time. My
Mm-hmm.
biggest pet peeve is you need to put your best foot forward, right? You should be there early on your interview. When a candidate comes to my unit 5 minutes, 10 minutes late, that's a red flag for me. If you cannot even come
Mm-hmm.
early on your interview prepared, then that's totally a red flag. And my staff already know if the interview went well or not is if I tour the candidate to the unit. If they see the candidate in and out my office,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's not a go. Because if I'm really interested with a candidate, what I usually do is I will introduce them to my staff. I will tour them to the unit and show them the area. So I mean, basic things that like I think sometimes candidates forget. I mean, enthusiasm really goes a long way, but you need to be prepared. Know about the position, know about the organization, right? Because, like I said, it's gone are the days that. I mean, we're just they're always looking. What are like you have alluded to that? What are the things that you're looking for? Knowledge and skills is always a given, right? You would want
Right.
that for any candidate, but attitude plays a big role. I mean, like I said, that you cannot teach. I mean, knowledge and skills, you should have that. And the skills, I said, you will develop that. But having the right attitude going to that interview and really being enthusiastic and knowing the organization you want to be a part of really puts you on an edge.
Mm.
Right. So when you talk about the behavioral questions, you can go online. They're all there. You know, nurses, we want you to be empathic. We want you to be able to give an example of going above and beyond. We're going to ask you a question about trust, about teamwork, about conflict, how you manage your day when something goes off the rails. And what really sinks the boat for most people is when they can't give specific examples. They say, I usually generally, and I'm like, all right, it's almost amazing to me when somebody can't give an example for a patient that they didn't go above and beyond. You know, because then you have to say to yourself, really? How is
Mm.
this person going to be as a teammate? But on the other hand, a few days ago, earlier in this week, I actually have a client group, and I interviewed a gentleman who actually came to the interview with a lot of points on his side because he was a veteran. He
Mm-hmm.
had experience, but what wowed me and put me over the edge was he had such an amazing example of how he went above and beyond for a patient. It wasn't dramatic, but it just showed me he has so much empathy. He has so much heart. And I kept on thinking to myself, if it were my parent or someone I loved being cared for by him, I would feel so much more at ease. And I think that is what really, for a lot of people, sinks the boat when I generally, or they can't give an example at all,
Mm.
right? If you ask about teamwork and they can't tell you a time they work with their coworkers, you have to think, how is this person, this is hard work we're doing, that. And the other piece, just to go back to to all nurses, is the resume. I get tons of inquiries from people working in the hospital, they send me somebody's resume, but that's not how the world works. It's all electronic. So when you apply online, the first thing that anybody sees, the recruiter, the hiring manager, is that resume. And it's like a calling card. It's got to look crisp. It's got to be factual, and it's got to contain the necessary information. On some of our positions, I get 200 applicants. Do you think I'm going to call up all 200 and say to them, can you clarify for me that you have a New York State license? Can you clarify for me you had this experience? I'm like, get out of here. I'm just going to
Right.
go to the next person.
Wow.
And every once in a while, I'll call somebody and I said, why didn't you put that on your resume? It's such good information.
Now, so a couple of quick questions come out of that for anybody to answer is there any responsibility for nursing schools of nursing to prepare our new grad nurses to be ready for an interview? And anybody can answer that.
I feel like you're in nursing school. As a new grad, I feel like you should use all the resources your school offers because there's a lot and you just don't know about it. Just keep asking them, your guidance counselors, your what you call this?
Career center.
Right. And then also online, there's a lot online that could help you build up your resume. And I was going to talk about that.
So the Student Nurses Associations at most of the college host an event because people from my team have gone. I happen to adjunct someplace, and I teach nursing leadership and to senior students, and that is one of the things that I actually spend a whole class on is resume construction. And I tell the students if they decide not to come to the class, don't expect me to be fixing your resume by email. But I think the schools have a huge obligation. But like Neil said, there's so many resources. In January, the New York State Student Nurses Association had their annual meeting in Manhattan, thank God. And actually, I spoke there and gave the session on resume construction. And then we had about 10 of us, recruiters from all the major hospitals, where students just came and met with us, and each one of us on one-to-one, and we worked on their resumes with them. So you're absolutely right, Wesley. You can use an online template, and they should be simple. We don't go necessarily for the caduceus in the middle and all of that stuff for all nurses. And if you use those templates, you got to make sure you click and get rid of all that stuff. That looks really pretty tacky. But yes, the schools should teach them. But like as Neil said, you got to take the bull by the horns and get going. Even for nurses' aides, we hire BSN students. We expect them, BSN students as aides, we expect them to come with a nice resume.
Nice.
And Wesley, shameless plug for the New York City Men in Nursing chapter, right? At least twice a year, we do resume clinics, right? We time it right senior year, and those events are usually well attended.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and what's great about it is they have like a one-to-one consultation. So usually I participate. We will have like a few senior nurses or hiring managers that will participate. And like I said, they could bring in their resume. We could critique it right away there and there. And like I said, use your resources that you have. Starting from school and from other professional organizations that usually offer support to brand new grads and graduating students.
Even experienced nurses. I am sometimes almost shocked that a nurse with many years of experience would actually apply to a position with a resume that is not at all reflective of the individual. And, so I think that's a good piece of advice for anyone is to have a well-prepared and an updated resume. It drives me crazy when experienced nurses says, "Oh, I forgot to put that on my resume," or "This is my old resume." Hey, what does that say about the attention to detail?
I'll be transparent and honest. I myself have been caught in situations where I'm like, "Ooh, my resume isn't updated. I am so sorry."
So
Uh,
guess
it's
what? It's a habit of mine
uh,
every year. I mean,
Hmm.
January, it's automatic. I update my CV. Not that I'm looking for a job, right? I'm very happy where I'm at.
mhm.
We have
But
11
January,
hospitals of opportunity. We want
exactly,
everybody
you'll
to take
never
the best
know. Yes,
route.
an opportunity will come. But every January, I'll make sure I'll update it. I'll add any conferences I attended, any awards that I have received, or anything that I have done, just to make sure that my CV, when I need it, I could pull it out from my computer. It's all updated.
I think you better help Wesley.
And it's so somebody. So I have a comment, a text message from a viewer that basically says, "With all that I have to do as a nursing student, this feels like it would be overwhelming." I guess I mean, going to resume clinics or going to the career center. They didn't really clarify, but I think that's what they said they're sounding like. Like, is there any kind of balance, Neil, you think, in being a nursing student, uh, getting all those clinical hours in, getting A's and B's on your exams, and trying to be prepared to look for a job? Because one of the biggest things that Ian and Rosemary said is being prepared is a very important piece of being successful in your first job.
Right, right. So being prepared is a good thing. It's always a good thing. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. But as a nursing student and working as an aide, doing your preceptorship, going to studying for your test, it gets really, really overwhelming. There's times that I don't even get to see my friends. There's times I don't even get to see my family and stuff. But you know what? Just take it day by day. That's the best thing I could say. It's tough, but at the end of the tunnel, it's going to be all worth it.
Right.
Gotcha.
You can start the resume construction early in the senior year too, and then just polish it up when if once you get your for the preceptorship part, you know. And as I said, there are templates online. It makes it pretty simple
Right.
to do.
Right. Blake says, Blake Smith, who's the president of AAMN, and I forgot to say at the beginning of this, unfortunately, he has a family conflict that he was unable to attend, but he is attending virtually. And he stated that we have a dedicated educational unit where he worked in critical care, and their preceptors would do unofficial evals that would let management know when we identified a great candidate as a senior level nurse or preceptee. I always told my students who I precept that they should act like you're on a job interview from the very beginning, even in the preceptorship.
He's spot on.
I mean, I have experience not only here in my current organization, but my previous organization that, where they do clinicals. I mean, the worst thing you could do is when you're doing a clinical is on your last day is when you hand me your resume. It actually happened to me, and it was so mind blowing, right? I mean, every morning I even include the students on the huddle. I always preface it to my nurses, let's support the future generation of nurses, right? So when I do my morning change of shift huddle and the students and their clinical instructors are there, I always involve them. So like Neil said, that's time to get to know, to ask questions, and to really establish a relationship, not because your intention is looking for a job, but that's the right thing to do, right? But I have this one student at the very last day of her orientation is when she introduced herself and give me her resume and saying, "Oh, I'm graduating." And I had to pull her aside to my office and to give her that feedback. I said, "You should have done this on your first day. You should have introduced yourself on your first day. How many days, 3 times a week, you're in my unit, both in my ICU and telemetry? Then you see me pass by. I say hello to you guys. You should have engaged and get to know the people. I mean, right from while you're having your clinicals, right? Learn as much as you can. It's mind blowing for me. I see some students. they're on their clinicals, but they're on their phone. I told them you should be attached to the hip of your preceptor, right? Wherever they go, you
Right.
go. You ask questions. Anything exciting happening, you should be right there and there because guess what? You're actually on an interview right there because how many times I have spot great students and I told them after you got and like I said they have made that connection. They
Hmm.
took the effort to really show up. And so before they finish their orientation, I told them when you pass your boards, let me know, keep me posted, and I may not be able to hire them on my telemetry or ICU right away,
Hmm.
but I will definitely recommend them to any other hiring managers or PCD because they really stood up and they I mean compared to all their other classmates. So
Right.
it's very important. You're always on stage. You're being interviewed before you even know it.
Right. That's a really 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 great point, Ian. So from day one, even at the preceptorship, like Blake said, you're on an interview. You're being seen, and I'll be honest. I know our phones, and I'm sure they probably, as students, see even experienced nurses pull out their cell phone on occasion and say, "Oh well, the nurse does it," and think that that's probably okay.
Well, I mean, the cell phone, now that in many of the hospitals, these smartphones are used as a means of are replacing the call system,
Hmm.
they're replacing the computers on wheels, but it's also more importantly being involved and engaged and looking and volunteering, looking for learning experiences, all of that. Ian is spot on. Most of the students, um, I mean, they get new grads that get hired. I'd say a large majority are students who are individuals who were the students of the institution
Hmm.
and were good students, and we have DEUs as well. So that's even a better way. But you're on stage every minute. And even for the experienced nurses, when you come for an interview, they take you on a tour, not to really show off the place, but to really see how you're going to interact and react in the environment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you are there and being respectful of the patients and the staff and asking meaningful questions, they're making a decision right there. When you come and you're not, you act like you're disinterested, you make some derogatory remarks, you may think that they're funny, but most other people might consider them to be disrespectful. That really is a game changer for you, and it's very hard to undo that first impression.
That's so interesting and very, very important. I never really thought about that, Rosemary, is that we are assessing, like when you're touring a possible new candidate, to see how people are respectful of the environment, what their attitude is by seeing things. I work on an open heart cardiothoracic surgery unit and cardiac surgery, and you want people to who seem interested and who seem engaged, who seem respectful, and that's very important. But one of the things that kind of stands out, a mentee asked me who recently got a new job. He was hired into a neuro step down unit, and it's not his interest. He kind of graduated from school knowing what his interest was. Do you think that as new graduates, that who kind of like should typically have a clean slate about what they want to do or what specialty they want to be honest about and open about what their true interests are at the interview period, or they should be kind of present as very open towards any experience?
Well, you have to be open to experience, and there's a number of ways you can look at it. And I think I can see it. I was a manager, I was a director. So, from that side of it, and from the recruitment side. So, we've had kind of, individuals who come and, we'll say we have an opening on oncology, and they say, that's not really my area of interest. And I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. But I think the other way, the flip to that is you have to be realistic. Some people will come in and they only want CTICU, and you know how difficult that is.
Right.
And it's not really a good unit for a new grad to start. So they can't keep on, if you keep on insisting and searching for that CTICU job, you probably won't get it. So you have to be open, but you have to realize that you're not like what's really horrible and gives people a very bad impression is if a new grad's orientation is almost 6 months. It's a huge investment on financially and on the part of the preceptor to do that and then say, you know what, I don't want to work on this unit anymore. I want to transfer. I deal with that all the time. And that's really hard. We actually put a policy in for 1 year, and we do not hire people from other institutions who have not been there for a full year. If we see they've been there 6 months, we're like either they're failing probation or they're not going to commit. So I think you have to be open, but you have to be true to yourself and realistic. What's available, like what you're really competent to do. I always, like sometimes people are overconfident and thinking they know more. They don't know what they don't know. And that's like the balance. So it's a tough, I think you have to be true to yourself, but you also have to be realistic about what you can do and what your true competence is.
Because like I said, I have mentioned that earlier. Like I said, I have been approached too many times because like I said, I mean, through our events and through the chapter, our New York City Men in Nursing chapter, knowing that I cover critical care. How many times I've been approached by graduating students or new grads basically wanting to go straight to ICU, which is good. Like I said, if that's really your interest. But I mean, I always tell them that I mentioned earlier, it will only make you a better critical care nurse if you have a solid, at least 1 to 2 years med-surg experience. And like Rosemary said, about looking on resume. I mean, it's a red flag for me too when I review a resume, not necessarily a new grad, when I see they move from one place to the other, not even spending a year. Because like you said, it's either they're not adapting well or they're not able to commit. So it's always a red flag for me when I see a candidate moving from one position to the other in less than a year. And I encourage them, like I said, give it a chance, right? I mean, it's gonna be difficult. I'm sure Neil right now is going through like on his 3 weeks of orientation. I mean, the learning curve is so hard, right? So like I said, at one time was it earlier this week, Neil, when I rounded on their unit, their PCD was off, and I said, "Who's your preceptor?" So I mean, like I said, the first few weeks, I mean, even to first few months of a brand new nurse is really critical, right? So it's really important that you learn as much as you can. And like I said, asking the right questions. And for me, there's never a stupid question, right? You want to really learn. And the best way to do it is really get involved there, right? You're always hip to hip with your preceptor. And if nothing's happening and something is happening on the other district, you'll be open to, okay, check it out. Right? I mean, you need to really shorten the learning curve so that you could be a safe practitioner as soon as you can. Obviously, we have to follow how many weeks of orientation, but if you could shorten that learning curve by asking questions, by doing some readings, I mean, things that you see on the unit that day, right? Going home and then reading about it and reinforcing what have you seen in the unit will really set you up for success as a brand new nurse.
Right. Neil, did you graduate from nursing school knowing your specialty, or how did you approach the interview?
That's gonna sorry to touch up. That's what I was gonna add on. Like, I don't really understand how new grads come out of school thinking, "Oh, I want to go to CCU or ICU or ER," and me, I'm like, I don't know where I want to go. Like, but for me, it's like just go to med-surg, go to like any place you can possibly go to, get your experience. You never know. Just try to experience things. You might actually end up liking it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you
Is that
think so? Your idea is also that new grads should come out with a clean slate, open to and ready for new experiences, even if it's neuro. So you all know what kind of nurse I am. I not a
So
fan.
so I think that too, that sometimes what I always say to the students, particularly, there's learning in every hospital, in every situation. But sometimes for somebody who's very zealous about critical care, for whatever reason, I'm not a critical care nurse. So like sometimes you could be open to step down. If someone said to you, well, we have a step down position, what about that? That's a wonderful bridge. And that in most places is how you get to critical care
Right.
is you go through, usually you go to a step down unit first. And truly, some of those step down units, the patients are as sick as people in an ICU any which way, because sometimes they're there because there's no room in ICU. So
Hmm.
I think it's all about like being realistic and being open to possibility and making the best of a situation. And if you are miserable, not sharing it with all your buddies and making them miserable as well. Because
Oh,
that is, that is
right.
just toxic. No.
Yes, Rosemary, you're very right. That is something that is toxic to the environment. And I think that a lot of times, not a lot of times, but all too often, we just become open to just telling everybody, oh, I just hate coming to work every day, especially as a new grad, which would be really bad to say. But I do know I have had new grad nurses come into the specialty and say, I really don't like this. This is not for me. And come in 3 days a week and say that. And I'm like, you're like only a nurse for like 6 months and you
Right.
already know that you hate it. So, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
we can hear you.
So another question that I had, let me pull it up, was basically regarding. I know when I was a new nurse, I walked to the hospital with my resume to human resources. Then I physically walked it around. What do you guys think about that?
Oh my God.
Now I've been a nurse for like almost 17 years, so
Right. So the way of the world is that you apply online. You go to the hospital's website, you complete the stuff and apply. If I will tell you, I get all these referrals from heaven knows where, from the highest levels of the organization and to the lowest.
Mhm.
And when I go and I get these resumes, the first thing I do is to check and see if they have applied to a job. And if they haven't applied to a position right away, I'm like, this is a problem. If you can't even take enough time or care enough to apply for a job, what do you think? You're entitled to a job as well. So you must apply online. It absolutely, the recruiter from the world of recruitment, we hate when we get these VIP referrals. If you're a candidate, you will get a call. If your resume, that's why the resume is so important. But do
Mhm.
you think I appreciate getting, emails from the SVP and then follow up, and then they send them to my CNO and our SVP of nursing, who will just send some right back to me and says, take care of this. But it's not the way professionals do business. If you
Mhm.
need your parent or your relative or somebody that doesn't even know you, but friend of your parents, advocate for you, that's not the nurse I want. I want the nurse who really is scrappy and really wants this job and goes about it in a professional manner. I don't mind that people email me all the time. They get my name one way or another. I don't mind that. I
Mhm.
think that's like shows to me that they have initiative. but I don't appreciate the parents or other people advocating for them. They're laughing. They know that this goes on. And,
No, like I said, I do get a lot of that, and like I said, my when they do ask me, my first question is, "Have you seen our career website?" Right?
right,
That's where I direct them right away. So check out right our website, and then you will see all the postings there. That's the first thing I tell them. And like I said, yeah, building relationship is important, but that doesn't mean you get to jump jump the line only because you know somebody, right? It does have some value, but obviously you need to go through the process. And you could correct me wrong, Rosemary, but like I said, once you apply online, you're already being screened. So you
right,
want to make sure you submit a resume, that you have even done a spell check. Like I said, basic things. But from the moment you touch an organization through the recruitment website, you're already being screened. So you always want to put your best foot forward.
right. Actually, those resumes remain active for years. They're archived. So, like, um, when we have to, if we once in a while you have a job and nobody applies to, like the OR, and we can go in. We have a search feature, the recruiters do, and pull up all these old resumes. And we just get on the phone and call people and say, you applied 2 years ago. It looks like we didn't have a job for you at the time. Would you now be interested in blah, blah, blah? And I have even, we'll say to them, well, by now you must have had 2 years experience. We have an opening in CTICU on nights. What do you think about that? But if you don't have a resume online, or it's lousy looking, like Ian said, you don't stand a chance.
Exactly. That's such a good point. And something you said in that, Rosemary, that I love, because people are always saying, "Oh, well, when I apply for a job, it's not what you know, it's who you know." And I think one of the things that points out is, in our, at least I could say, in our profession, and in this particular practice, it's not about who you know. You can't just jump the line over all the applicants who took the time, who went to the career website, who read the job description, who did and uploaded a resume and answered sometimes those behavioral questions that get asked on there. So I'm so glad you brought that up. And are you guys there? I'm sorry.
We're
Yes.
here.
Okay. So I mean, so that kind of like is like my spiel. Blake says he was in med surge for 6 months, and then he was asked to move up to critical care. His experience there of assessment skills was critical for his success. I know I myself, I was in med surge for almost 3-4 years before one, before I felt ready. Two, before I also could separate myself from what became my family, because one of the biggest things is we work with our coworkers 40 hours a week, and sometimes it can be a grueling 40 hours, 36 to 40 hours, and they become family. You become close. And kind of tearing yourself away from that to go venture into other specialties can be tough. So thank you, Blake, for saying, hey, it's okay to go to med surge for 6 months to a year, get those really good skills, because I think that sometimes new grads, from what I've been hearing, saying, oh, it's okay for me to go work in ICU. I know that's what I want to do, and we're going to go become a part of the fellowship programs, which I think are great. The fellowship programs are great, but I also think that there are limited slots in these fellowship programs.
Right.
That are direct pipeways to ICUs, CCUs, ERs, and mother baby, other kind of specialties. So yeah, that's kind of like my spiel. I appreciate you all. Please, please, please share your last thoughts with our new grads, our nursing students who are watching this, because they want to come out here, they want to be successful. Blake pointed out the fact that he thinks all new nurses and new grads should apply to Nebraska.
Well,
Because
Don't get me started, Blake. I
yeah,
know I'm gonna have to give my spiel.
about, when there were no jobs about 3 years ago, I was telling all the students to apply to jobs in Texas, because I don't want to. They're great they would had such huge potential, but there were just no jobs in the Northeast. But tell Blake, thank you for that.
Right. Everybody's going to Nebraska, new nurses. So, Ian, what are your thoughts? What are your final points for new nurses who are kind of coming into the end of the semester? Because I know a few nursing schools actually that are having graduation in December, and they're going to be putting out nurses who are going to be actually coming up in the field where we've actually done most of the hiring from new grads. Right? Sounds like Rosemary.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the good news about the December, January grads is, nobody leaves a job after October because they don't want to, have to work the holidays or
Right.
anything. So they stay put. And then after the year, towards the end of the year, people do leave. And of course, the boomers are aging out. And so in 2020, I know that most institutions are having a lot of retirements. So they're well positioned for getting jobs. I think this is a great job market. It's very robust. Because for one thing, people are retiring. Hospitals are expanding their staffing because of the acuity of the patients. And I know that personally, So I think it's a robust environment. And I think if anybody listened tonight, everybody gave great advice. You need to try to incorporate that into your strategy. First and foremost, you got to pass the NCLEX.
Yes.
And I tell everyone, you must have a study plan, right, Neil?
Right.
And then, so you can pass it, and then follow all the advice we gave is really, I think, critical and helpful. It was very practical advice. We didn't say, and don't be discouraged if you don't get into ICU as a new grad. Try something different. You might even love it.
I mean, one last thing was, like I said, I mean, like Rosemary said, I mean, when any senior students, I told them your priority right now is to pass the NCLEX. So just focus on that. And once, I mean, like that was an interesting fact, Rosemary. I didn't know that. I mean, there's a higher percentage if you take it earlier, right? But like I said, that's your top priority after graduating. And then, like I said, I mean, one of the best thing you could do, and shameless plug, be part of a professional organization, find a mentor. I mean, you should have already identified mentors when you were in school, but more so when you graduate as a brand new nurse, you really need to find a mentor that could groom you and hone you and really be a sounding board. I mean, I'm still on my career. I'm very fortunate to have several mentors. I feel like everybody, as far as I know, even my CNO said she still has a mentor, right? So you could never start early of finding the right mentor for yourself that could guide you and direct your path in your career. And like I said, be a sounding board. And I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have a mentor that will always call me out. Oh, Ian, you need to do this better, right? I mean, I'm so fortunate about that. And like I said, this early, find a mentor that could help and support you. But first things first is focus on passing that NCLEX. And then, like I said, be open to any possibilities. Get to know the organization you're interested in. And like I said, be prepared. Come prepared, dress properly, on time, good eye contact, firm handshake. These are basic things, but sometimes I'm surprised that some of the candidates that I encounter really, you're coming in that way. But these are basic things. But if you have it squared down, you already have an edge to all the other candidates.
Right. And Neil, we're finishing up with you. You're in the hot seat.
There's too much pressure to end up. But to all my new grads, to all my peers, all I have to say is go the extra mile. It's never too crowded. Put in the work. If you have to be an aide first, go be an aide. Put in the hours studying for your NCLEX. Practice questions. Pass your NCLEX. Keep applying for jobs. During an interview, if you don't get it, don't be discouraged. Keep interviewing. The more you practice, the more you get better at it. The more you become a better applicant. That's it. Just go extra mile. Be ready to put in the work. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And yeah, we have the best career in the world.
Right. And I just want to end on a positive note briefly, but to note all the men that are listening to this podcast, because I know you have women in the organization.
Hmm.
Every hospital, every organ, you are in such a wonderful spot because we value you, we welcome you into this position, and most I know we're at least at our institution and most institutions want a diverse nursing staff, and we need men of all ethnicities, of all genders, of all everything to join us. So you are in a wonderful, wonderful position. I can tell you personally, if there's a female and a male equally qualified for a job in general, the male will get the position. So don't get discouraged. As Neil gave you a good pep talk there, just follow his advice, and I think you'll be very happy with the outcome.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you all again so much for being on tonight. I appreciate your expertise. And thank you guys for tuning in. So, hopefully, next week, I'm not sure if we'll have a show, but hey, make sure you tune in. If you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to post them after we look at them. We'll be forwarding those to Rosemary, Ian, and Neil if you want them addressed by a certain person in the comments. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All again, our new grads and our new nurses, go out there and hey, you're joining the most amazing, amazing profession.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night, everybody.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.